Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 604. I had the white pieces and started off with d4. My opponent played g6. And we get into the modern defense. I guess the more typical way of playing this is with e4. But I was wanting to stay in queen's pawn opening territory, so I go with c4. Also, a fine move here, bishop g7. So this early bishop g7 and avoiding the knight f6 move, these are the things that characterize the modern defense. If the knight comes out to f6, then this is more likely to be a Pirtz or a King's Indian defense. So I continue with normal development here, knight f3, he goes d6, and knight c3, and knight d7. So he's still avoiding the development of this knight and keeping this line open for his bishop. And now the main line and the way to continue in modern territory is to play e4. That would be the main line. I go with g3 here, setting up a counter fianchetto, which is okay. And the normal response here is e5, taking advantage of this bishop, the fact that it has an unobstructed view of this diagonal, and so supporting that pawn push. Also just knight to f6 and developing the knight. But my opponent plays with c5, so interesting way to play. Let's go this way. I've looked at this with a chess engine, and the engine likes white's position quite a lot, especially after he trades right here. In this position, it gives white a +1 score, which is a pretty big advantage, but it's not a immediate edge. It's just a general space. White has more space and more freedom to develop his pieces, but there's no immediate breakthrough. So it's the kind of position chess engines like a lot, but it's still a long game. It's not like it's winning at this point, in spite of the evaluation the engine gives it. Okay, so finally he develops his knight, and both sides castle. And I bring my rook here to take a look at this undefended pawn on e1. On e7, rather. He plays e6, but that leaves the d6 pawn a little bit backwards and gives me another idea. So I play b3 to be able to develop my bishop out here. He goes a6, bishop a3, and now he defends it with the somewhat awkward-looking move knight to e8, but I guess he wants to have his queen free to move about. He doesn't want the queen tied down, tending to a lowly pawn there, and it does open up that diagonal for his bishop again, so there's some point to it. Let's see, I go rook c1, normal development, queen a5, hitting my bishop, and I drop back. And the knight is still defending the a-pawn, the bishop defends the knight. So I'm holding things together pretty well. But it's this move here, b5. I don't respond to this in the best way. So I've kept the advantage from early in the opening up to this point, and then it kind of disappears the next few moves. So this is a little bit of a tactical quiz. What's a good move for white right in this position? Okay, the best move here is knight to e5. The thing is that his rook is sitting there in the corner unprotected, and when he played b5, he opened up that diagonal towards the rook. So this is my one-time only opportunity to play that move, so I can give up the knight but win the rook, and so basically come out the exchange ahead. I played queen d2 right here, and then he immediately played rook b8. So I missed my one chance to pick up the exchange there. And not only that, my next couple moves are probably not the best. I traded here, and this leaves me with a backwards a-pawn, which is somewhat weak. He's got this open file looking at it. And so I played a3 to try and hold on to it. But basically the position is just even, so whatever opening advantage I had is pretty much disappearing. And then right here, I make another mistake. I didn't reckon with the threat to my pawn here. I need to do something about that. Perhaps moving this knight out of the way would be a good idea here. There was one other thing. In the game, I was wondering about this move. I guess it's right here. I was wondering about the move knight to d5. This is another little tactic. It exposes an attack on the queen, which is loose over here. And of course he can take my queen, but then my knight can hop in here with check. And actually the engine likes this. It likes it better than my move c takes b5. So it's the other way for me to keep the edge. If I had played here, he could take. I come in here with check. King goes here. And now I'm threatening to take this bishop, so I thought he would play here and try and... it's my move here. I have to take the bishop back. I have to take the queen back, and then he moves his bishop out of the way. so I can't take it with the knight. But I thought my knight was getting trapped here. And in fact, most of the squares are taken, but it is still possible for me to go to c6, supported by my bishop here. So knight to c6, encouraging this trade, and white's a little bit better. So that would be the best play for for white at that point. And it's funny, I thought about this idea, and I calculated up to this point, and even here to bishop b7, and I just thought this knight was getting trapped. I didn't notice, when I was calculating ahead, I didn't notice that I'd opened up this diagonal for the bishop and actually created the c6 square, gave the knight the c6 square to retreat out of. Okay, so anyway, c takes b5 then is a mistake, and my game starts to go downhill. So let's go back. I push this pawn forward so it would be protected by the bishop, and I'd be free to move the knight. Let's see, he played bishop b7. I kicked the queen. He went queen to b6. And now he's targeting my d-pawn, and I didn't defend it. I went queen to d3. So now it's switched, and black is starting to get the advantage here. He could just... he takes off the knight first. So he does have to give up the bishop pair. And then the chess engine wants to take with the bishop. He took with the queen, which why the engine doesn't like this so much is it thinks I should trade queens and go into an endgame, and it thinks I have chances to hold the endgame. So I was not too happy with this endgame with these two pawns here. One of them a passed pawn, and I thought that would be a difficult endgame to hold. So I kept the queens on, and so black just stays a pawn up, and he's in pretty good shape here. Let's see, knight to e2. And he stays. He doesn't make any mistakes on this part. He stays ahead for the next while. Let's see. I decided to trade off the dark squared bishop, which is often a good piece, but this has activated his knight, so that might have been a little mistake too. My idea was to raise the rook and defend the a file this way, but he can pile up on that pawn very quickly. I didn't spot this idea. He comes in here with knight e5, kicking my bishop, so he does that with tempo, and then jumping into this excellent square on c4. And now he can just pile up on that pawn. So let's see, I start maneuvering my knight around. I need to try and oppose that knight, but I just don't have enough time. Let's see, he goes knight f5, I go knight to d3, and now he starts his piling up on my a pawn. I go queen c1 to defend it. He lifts, and let's see, I bring my knight into c5, getting my knight to a good square. And then he goes rook f to a8. And now I had some tactical ideas. I need to get rid of this pawn so that when I take the knight with my rook, he takes back with the pawn and opens up this diagonal. And this is all true, but it's just not, it doesn't really gain me anything. In fact, it costs me a pawn. So objectively, it's not good, but objectively, I'm just losing here anyway, so I just wanted to complicate things. And it did serve to complicate things. So he took, and then I grabbed the knight. He took back, and now I can grab the rook in the corner. And here I really thought he was just going to take back with the rook, but he played a much better move, actually, and one that I hadn't spotted. I thought he had to grab a piece because he's a piece down here, and he has to get his piece back. But he can play queen takes pawn, so this is pretty well spotted. The thing is, I have two pieces hanging. I don't have time to save both of them. So, I try to get at least a pawn for that piece. I take here on e6, and now he finally grabs here, and I save my knight. But, this leads to some interesting possibilities here. He plays rook c8 to chase my knight, and that leaves his rook in a bit of a vulnerable position. And actually, I have a couple of moves with tempo here. I can go knight d5 with tempo hitting the queen. And then I go g4, which is hitting the knight so that I can come in here with a check. So queen b3 probably was not best. He should try and stay on this diagonal to protect that square. Let's see. Although, my rook is on that square, so maybe it doesn't help so much. But I think the engine was suggesting queen to d6 there was a good move. Anyway, queen to b3. The funny thing about this is that even after this, I'm actually still losing. So black is still winning through all of this sequence. Knight to h4, knight e7 check. I thought I was winning rook here, and I am winning a rook. But he's got tricks up his sleeve too. He went knight f3 here to win back some material. But in fact, the move queen f3 is just completely winning. There's a threat of checkmate here, and I don't really have a good way to meet that. So I'm in big trouble here. Let's see if I try to run with the king. Maybe we can turn on the engine here and see what the engine says. Queen to h3 check. King to not there. Queen to h3 check. Yeah, you got to be precise here. Queen to h3 check. And king to e2 running out. You know, it looks like it's escaping, but queen to d3 is mate. Pretty cute. And then the other way, if the king goes back, then queen to g2 is mate. Okay, so anyway, it's checkmate there, and no way to stop it. So that would be queen f3 check. That would be the way for black to finish the game here in style. He plays knight f3 check, and even though he's down material here, he's still winning. And the problem is just that my king is too exposed. He played queen b2, and that finally lets me back into the game. But right here, he still had a winning idea. So if you want to see if you can spot the tactic here, it's kind of cute. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. The idea is queen f3 check. And the king only has one square it can move to. And then the queen can grab this pawn with check. And it's a fork. And then black picks up the knight and also has these two extra pawns. So black is, which are advanced passed pawns. They're really dangerous. So black is pretty easily winning at that point. So that's the way to win it. His second chance here. Instead he played queen b2, and actually from this point on the evaluation is now even. With good play he can hold this to a draw, but he can't win anymore. I come in with knight. The thing is my queen and my knight are just a little too active. He brings his queen back to d4 to try and defend. Bring my queen to e7, planning to break through on f7 here. He plays queen to d5 check, defending that pawn. My king gets away, and now he just starts pushing his pawn, going for... He's just two moves away from mating me. But, well, my attack is quicker here, and actually this is a forced mate from this point. I go knight to e8 check, and the way for him to survive the longest is to drop back here, but then I have the knight check that will pick up the queen, and I'll win in a few moves. So that's also a forced mate after. I think that's mate in 9. Of course, if he goes here, it's mate immediately with queen f8. So he went to king h6. And right here, there's a mate in 2. So there's another cute little tactical puzzle for you. This is a great one. So see if you can spot the mate in 2 right here. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. You know, unfortunately for me, I was really low on time, so I had to kind of crank these moves out pretty quickly, and I didn't spot this idea. But the mate in 2 is this check, which the king has no escapes. There's no legal moves for the king, and the knight's guarding the escape square here, and the queen is guarding those escape squares. So the only legal move is to block with the queen, and now the checkmating idea is this very cute one. You checkmate with the pawn. The queen is pinned, so it can't take the pawn, and the king can't take the pawn because it's protected, and the king still can't run away, so that's mate. That would have been a nice way to finish it. Anyway, I finished it in a somewhat more cumbersome fashion. In fact, after chasing the king around for a little bit, you know, I'm still keeping an edge through this part, but at a certain point, I think it's right here, queen h6 check, he actually could put up quite a fight with the move g4. So I was very lucky when he kept running, I mean g5, and I think, you know, I have a slight edge, but he has counterplay, you know, and if I don't mate him, you know, I have to worry about these pawns here, so it's big trouble after g5 there, although the engine still rates white as slightly better, but no longer an easy one. Anyway, he went king f3, and now I spotted the idea of chasing the king to a light square where I can deliver this fork and pick up the queen, and so this cancel that. This is an easy win from this point. He played on a few moves, trying to get something going with his pawns. My queen can effectively stop both those pawns. I could round them up, and won't be a problem. So he resigned here. Anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.